Hi there, it's Laura here from Get Organized HQ, and if there's one thing that I know a little bit about, that is how to create a beautifully organized shelf. I've done this in my own home multiple times, I've helped other people do it, and I have literally written the book on how to create a beautifully organized shelf. It's called the Shelfie Handbook. You can see the details down below if you're interested in that. But here's what I want to talk about today when it comes to creating these organized shelves. Sometimes what happens is you get this image in your mind of this like shelf that you want to create and what you want it to look beautiful and organized, and then you create it and you're not happy with the results. I want to talk about some common mistakes that people make and some ways that you can fix it if you feel like you're not happy with the way that it turned out. Now, before I dive into some of the specifics, I want to make it really clear here that there is no right or wrong, and the only criteria that I would measure the success of a shelf by is if you like it and it makes you smile. So even some of the don'ts that I say I don't recommend, if you love it, great. But we're saying, hey, you've made this shelf and you're not loving it. What might be some of the reasons, especially if you like the look of this shelf behind me and some of the others that I've done? I can help you achieve that. But it's really important to note that any space where everything has a home and you know where that home is and it makes you smile is organized. That's all it takes. So it does not have to look like this shelf behind me. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's shelf. It doesn't have to be all matching. There are no other criteria. So this is not to make you feel like you need to have a shelf that looks a certain way. This is to help you if you're frustrated with how it is turning out. If you don't like your shelf, it may be because you have gone to one extreme or the other on the matchiness of your bins. So you've either gone too matchy and literally everything matches, or you haven't gone matching enough and you have, and this is what I think is a more common situation, and you have like two bins like this and two bins like this and two bins like this, and it ends up coming together and looking kind of hodgepodgey. The other thing I will say about the over matchiness, if you want it to look a lot more like a modern decor piece, like if it's kind of out in the open and less like just like an organized bunch of stuff, then you're gonna wanna not be too matchy. So like you see back here, mine very much err on the side of matchiness because I personally just like that. So that works for me. But even so, you'll see how I've put some decor pieces and it's not all 100% of those bins. If I did that, it would still look pretty organized. Like I think it would still look good. It would just be very visually heavy and it wouldn't look quite as much of a decor piece. And then on the flip side, if you do all mismatched bins, it's going to end up looking really hodgepodgey. So if you can bring in some uniformity, and it doesn't mean that every bin has to be the exact same. It could just be like they're all clear, or they're all clear with bamboo, or you limit yourself to two different types. That's what I mean by making it cohesive. Another thing you have to watch out for is closed storage versus open storage. So when I say closed storage, I mean like those white bins behind me, they're completely opaque. You cannot see them at all, and I call that closed storage. Versus, it's very hard to see right down there, we have these clear multi-purpose bins, or these days those clear acrylics are really popular. And if you use too many of the clear acrylic bins, the storages that you can see in and see through, and those are really popular these days, you're gonna have to work harder to keep the stuff inside them organized. And if you really want to achieve that really organized look, you're going to have to control what you even put in there. And if you pay attention to the popular organizing, like the Home Edit Netflix show or their Instagram feed, and they've really popularized the acrylic look, you'll notice that when they put stuff in there, they're not just putting anything in there. That stuff is all matching. And not only that, a lot of times it's like color coded, like you're putting in bright green boxes of macaroni and cheese only. You're not putting in the blue craft boxes. So that's one thing to consider if you're choosing a lot of that storage that you can see into. And if it looks a little bit less organized once you've done that, it may be because you've just thrown stuff in there. Now, there's nothing wrong with using those clear storage, but just know if you want that super organized look, you're gonna have to be way more picky about what goes in there. So the alternative is the closed storage like you see with those white bins. That's why I love it so much, is the stuff in there doesn't necessarily have to be super organized, and it doesn't necessarily have to all match or be a certain color, and it still looks really nice. One other thing that getting closed storage will do for you is it will look good even if your shelf isn't full. So I am a huge, huge fan of having room to grow, of having empty spaces, of having empty bins. That's not gonna look as good if you have a bunch of clear clear see-through empty bins, but a lot of these white bins are empty and it still looks totally fine. So if you don't have enough to fill your space, you're definitely gonna wanna go for a lot of closed storage. And I'm gonna leave links in the description down below to some of my personal favorite closed storage options. So check down there to see what those are. Another common mistake I see is using storage that is not modular. That means that it doesn't stack well, and even if it does, only the same size item can stack. So I can't stack two of the smaller ones and fit them on top of one larger one. And modular storage is going to make your space look so much more neat and tidy versus if you have things that are all different heights and don't really fill up the space, that is not gonna look as organized as that truly modular storage. And I'm gonna also give a link to my favorite modular style organizing. These are a little bit harder to find, I will be honest. Even the hour bins from the Container Store, which I love, and I've talked about this I think in previous videos, they aren't completely modular, and that's one of the things that bothers me about them. Obviously, these white Cuggus bins, Bed Bath & Beyond has a perfect dupe as well. I'll leave a link down below. Those are completely modular, and that's one of the things that I like about them. Another thing that some people may skip but can really elevate your space is labeling and using pretty labels. Now there's lots of different ways you can do this. I use my cutting machine for these labels back here, and obviously they look really nice on that like solid white, but those are not the only options. I'm gonna leave some links down below to some videos I've done about labeling and also some of my favorite labels lately. These very affordable labels from Amazon I have absolutely loved. And you can either cut something with a cutting machine out of vinyl, or you can just take your label maker and literally like print out a little label and stick it on there, and it already looks so much better, and they fit on so many things. So you don't necessarily need some complicated label that takes forever, but adding labels will first of all add cohesion, so it just kind of brings everything together. And if you're going for a really organized look, there is nothing like a label to make it look organized, and it obviously helps quite a bit with the functionality because you're going to be able to put things back. And a lot of people say, well, I'll know what's there. You may, but I have found, and many people have told me the same, that if you label it, it is less likely that you're going to get lazy about putting things back, simply because it just feels wrong to toss something in the wrong bin when it has a label on it. Another reason you may not be super happy with your shelves is if things are hanging over the edge. It's going to look way, way neater if you don't have items, bins hanging over the edge. Now, one thing to consider here is not all shelves are created equal. So this is probably my #1 requirement when I go to get myself a new shelf is the depth of the shelves. If they are really shallow, it is going to be harder to find bins that will fit on without overhanging, especially the multi-purpose bins. My favorite that I talk about all the time, of course, I'll link those down below too. They'll hang out off of some shelves, and that is not going to look as nice. So make sure you have the right depth of shelves, and if you do have shallower shelves, that you're getting storage that's not going to hang off. One reason you might not be as happy with your shelves is if you didn't think about like the decor and the color scheme and how it relates to the rest of your space that you're putting it in. So I love some of these like dark, deep wood tones and that look, but it wouldn't look very good in this particular room where everything is bright and white and kind of the whole vibe of my brand, light, bright, and white. So that's why I went with these shelves and storage that is very light and bright. Versus upstairs in our craft room, it's not quite so light and white. And I do have a wood shelf there, and I've introduced some less bright tones, and it looks good there. So just think about kind of the overall feel that you want to achieve, and color makes a huge, huge difference. Whenever it comes to design, home design, and organizing, color just makes a world of difference. I mean, think about a room that you paint, you know, say it was like some dark, deep burgundy. This happened to us, and then you paint it like a bright white. It transforms things. That's another tip, especially if you're on a budget, or if you don't mind DIYing, you can find great shelves on like those Facebook groups, you know, Facebook Marketplace. People will be selling them for next to nothing, or giving them away, or yard sales, or Goodwill. And a good coat of paint can transform almost anything. And they have amazing types of paint these days that you can use with all different types of furniture, and you'd be amazed at what it can do. And also, as a little side tip, I've done this a few times, you can totally spray paint bins, like even baskets, like wicker baskets. You can spray paint those, or you know those cheapy plastic ones you get at the Dollar Tree? A can of spray paint will transform those. I already alluded to this in the introduction of the video, but it's so important, I think it bears repeating, and that is, it's important to create a shelf that you like, and not just try to take something that you saw on the internet or make something that will please someone else. Now, if you do see something on the internet that you like and you want to replicate it, like you want to take one of the recipes in my Shelfie handbook and duplicate it, by all means, go for it, do it. But if that isn't what you like, if, for example, everyone else, and this is kind of me, is telling you, well, for it to look like really nice and modern, you can't be too matchy-matchy. You know, you need to kind of mix and match and things like that. But you really like the look of every single bin matching, go for it. This is for you and your family to enjoy, so there's no one else that you have to answer to. Or maybe you love the eclectic look. You don't really want everything to be matchy-matchy. You want everything to look different, and you like it and it makes you smile. That is totally fine. So make sure that you're creating something that you like to see. Now, if what I've said has resonated with you, I think you would love my video about the one thing you need to do in order to be organized. So I'll put that right here, and go ahead and check that out.